Hi, my name's Chris. I'm Jack's brother. A lot of people have said over the years that I look like Jack. I always say he looks like me. But yeah, Jack was my older brother, and he was one of my best friends. We'd always play as kids. You know, we had a great neighborhood. We had a bunch of kids in our neighborhood we played with. We played basketball, we played football, we played soccer, we played wiffle ball, and we raced everything. We raced bicycles, we raced go-karts, we raced coasters down hills, we even raced big wheels. So anything that had a wheel, we would race. Me and Jack, you know, as brothers, we would fight, and probably the last time we fought, it was always me that had to instigate it because he could always beat me up, no problem, anytime. But one time I got mad enough at him that I'm like, all right, let's go. And so we square up, and he squares up at me, and we're both in fighting position, and he says, I've been waiting a long time for this. And I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. So, fight or flight. I did both. I went up to him, I punched him in the chest and ran. He caught me and beat me up. But he was super nice about it. He could have beat me up a lot worse than he did. But anyway, he was really athletic. I mean, everything he did. I mean, I know you guys play tennis with him, and you can tell everybody else how good he is in tennis. I mean, anything with golf club he picked up, he was good at. Basketball, football, everything. When we were growing up, we played a little bit of Pop Warner football, and Jack played defensive lineman for a couple years. I don't know, he's probably 14 years old or something. He wasn't the biggest defensive lineman, but his athletic ability shone through. He would go to these games, and he would have like 4 sacks in the game. A couple of tackles for loss. He would just be able to get by the offensive guy and tackle the guy, no problem at all. It was just amazing. And he played for North America, our high school basketball team. And although he didn't start, we had some big, tall guys on that team. And he did play some, but we were at a pep rally beginning of the year one time, and they introduced everybody on the team, and the big guys are going up and dunking it, and the other guys are just laying it up. Well, Jack comes along, and he does this layup where he goes behind his back, under his leg, up the goal, off the glass, and it bounces in, it goes in. The whole gym went crazy. and he was a hero for that whole week at school. I mean, everybody talked about it. And I think even his teacher in his class made him recount that whole thing with a trash bag and a piece of paper. So, and then he was really good with injuries, sports injuries. You know, if I ever had a problem, or me and my kids have ever had a problem, my wife had some muscle pull or something, he was always a great guy to call, and he would tell you almost as good as a doctor could what you needed to do. So that was always good. And then racing, you know, racing's been in our family since day one. And my dad took me and Jack to the racetrack when we were like 4 and 5 years old, and we both fell in love with it. And after a while, we would go to the track, and we were probably, by the time we were even 6 and 7, mom and dad would just let us go. We'd walk around the track, we would go to every corner, watch every car go around every corner of the track, and so we knew, like, by the time we were 9, 10 years old, how to apex a corner, how to get on the gas. We never driven a car before. So that was always fun, and being with Jack at those times, it was really good. And we go to this Chimney Rock hill climb, and you could, we were still young, we would go across the track, and we'd climb all the way up to the top of the hill, watching cars go by, and car would go by, and we'd run across the track and run up the hill. And I mean, some of those hills were pretty steep to get up through, but anyway, Jack got to race that race after a few years later, and there was one area at that hill climb that was turn 5, and there's a bunch of motorcycle guys that would go there every year. They would go there, and when we were walking up the track, we'd go through there, and those guys would all be drinking alcohol, you know, beers, whiskey, everything, and then we'd smell marijuana too every now and then. And so it was kind of a fun little corner to be at, but we go up. So Jack, he's driving up the course one time. I wasn't there. He's telling me about this, but he goes through that corner, turn 5, and he got it sideways. And while he's sideways, he sticks his hand and waves to everybody, and keeps going. Didn't go off the track, didn't crash, keeps going. And so from then on, when you do a hill climb, you drive up the hill climb, and then at the end, everybody comes down. Well, he's driving back down the thing, and every time he comes through that turn 5 area, they give him a big round of standing ovation almost. So that was pretty cool. We did that. But then he got his driver's license, and he's a little older than me, so he would drive me to school in high school. And one time we were late, and my dad had some nice cars for us to drive. He had a little Capri, Ford Capri 4-cylinder. He had it lowered. It had probably 3 degrees camber in the front and a sway bar in the front and everything. So really nice handling car. And great to practice racing in. And so anyway, we're late for school, and we're going down a 2-lane highway, and 1 lane in each direction. There's double solid lines, and there'll be dotted lines for people to pass every now and then. And 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. Well, he was doing 75, 80, and just passing cars whenever he could. It didn't matter. Double solid, legal passing, it didn't matter. He was passing cars. We did that for about 5 miles. And we get close to school, and we turn off the road to go to school. Next thing we know, there's blue lights flashing behind us. And so the cop pulls over, Jack pulls over, and the cop comes up the window and says, what's the hurry? And Jack says, yes, sir, I'm going to school. We're late for school, sir. And he just starts giving him the riot act. He said, I've been chasing you for the past 3 miles. I couldn't catch you. I said, you passed me back there with 3, I was in a line with 4 cars. I was the 3rd one in line on double solid yellow. You passed me. And I've been trying ever since then to catch you, and it took me this long to catch you. And Jack's just sitting there taking it, going, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Not saying any one bad word or anything to him, just yes, sir was all his whole response. And 5-10 minutes, he's just, and I'm just sitting there quiet going, oh my God, how am I going to get home? He's going to go to jail. And so the guy, the cop, after he yells at him for 5-10 minutes, he just hands Jack his license back and says, all right, now go on to school. And I don't ever want to, if I ever see this car come down this road 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, you're going to go to jail. And he let us go. Could not believe it. Another time he got pulled over, he told me this story. He didn't have his driver's license with him, and he started talking to the cop about racing, and he showed the cop his racing driver's license, and the cop let him go. So yeah, he's something else with the cops pulling him over. But the other thing he would do, whenever he would drive anywhere, it was a racing line he was going to take. Now, if he was going to get groceries or whatever, he was going to apex corners the way he would in a race car. He was always practicing. One time I was driving with him in the rain, and he said, yeah, I love driving in the rain because when I go around a corner, I could look in the rearview mirror and see where my tracks were, make sure I apex the corner right. So that was in his mind. 24/7 was how to be a better race car driver. And then we would drive home from school, and like I say, this Capri my dad had for us was really a nice handling car. We lived in North Carolina, above Charlotte, so there was a bunch of country roads and stuff. And so Jack and a buddy of ours, Teddy Thompson, who had this Volkswagen Rabbit, they would race home. I'm in the passenger seat, and they're racing through these country roads, and so it was a lot of fun. Luckily, nothing bad ever happened, but I could tell Jack knew what he was doing, so I wasn't too worried. Jack also had a little bit of a wild side. He went to college at Belmont Abbey, which was a Catholic school just outside of Charlotte. And you're not supposed to have any alcohol at all on campus. And so I went one weekend, I went to visit him, and so I get there, and going up the stairs to his dorm room, and it's like the scene of Animal House. I am totally serious about this. I'm walking up, and there's a tree, beside the dorm, and there's underwear in the tree. There's boxes of beer, empty beer cartons and stuff in there, and I'm like, I don't think they're supposed to be drinking here. What's all this doing? And I'm walking up there, and there's Black Sabbath just blazing out of one of the dorm rooms. Sure enough, that's where Jack is. So I go in there, and all his roommates were from New York, and they were a bunch of crazy guys. I mean, Jack was crazy, but they took him to another level. But they had told me the night before they had a party up there, and they had a keg up there. And the priest found out about it, was walking up to bust the party. Well, Jack ended up throwing the keg out the back window, 3-story bathroom window, to avoid the priest finding out about it. Well, that didn't go over too good, because they did find out about it. And, Jack wasn't really asked to come back to school anymore after that. So anyway. But anyway, the racing kept me and him close. I moved out to California in 1986 to work for a Nissan race team. And racing background. I got into the engineering side, and I got kind of upset because when I left to go back to do engineering out here, my dad and Jack got East Anglia Motorsports and started racing these spec racers. And I'm like, why couldn't you have done that when I was home? You know, if I'd have known I'd get kicked out of college and I'd get a race car, I would have done the same thing. But anyway, I would always talk to Jack after his races, and it took him a couple of years to get where he was really good at spec racers, and after a while he was one of the best in the Southeast. And I would talk to him, and one of the first words out of his mouth was, "I wore them boys out." And so he would proceed to tell me all about the race and how he was able to come out on top. And he was always interested in what I was doing too, and I'd tell him about what we were doing in Nissan and all the stuff I was getting in. So it was really, really cool between us there. And then he also was the king of bump drafting and spec racer. And he taught me how to do it. Like I say, when I was out here, I would go back to North Carolina every now and then once I had race cars, and I would do maybe 3 races a year with my dad and Jack. And one time, Jack, we were I flew back to Charlotte, and we were at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we were doing a practice session, and I was in one car and Jack was in the other. And he said, before the session, Jack says, "Here, we're going to do some bump drafting." And I said, "Okay, cool, let's do it." And so we get out there, and he gets behind me going down the back straight. We're bump drafting, and there's 2 cars pretty good ways in front of us, same spec racers, and we catch them like nobody's business, pass them like 15 miles an hour. I went up high, he went down low, so I'm at Charlotte Motor Speedway and turned 3-4 NASCAR right up against the wall, trying to avoid hitting these guys. And I'm sure they were like, well, I don't know how did these guys come by us so fast? I don't know, but it was super exhilarating. And he would use that bump drafting to win races. And one time he went to Pocono, and he was racing there, and he bump drafted his way to the win, and there was a hole in his front nose where the exhaust of the car in front of him burned a hole. He was pushing so hard. And one of the race officials came up and saw that, and he didn't kick Jack out, but he told Jack, kind of like the cop, "If I ever see you do that again, you're out of here. I'm going to throw you out." But Jack was smart about it, because what he would do is, in SCCA, if you're bump drafting, you can't really be on the car behind you. So what he would do is he would back off when there would be a corner worker standing. So the corner worker couldn't report that he was bump drafting. He would just back off for a second, and then he'd get back on him. So he was dynamite. He told me, he taught me how to do that. I was doing that out here. But anyway, he managed to win that race, and he was pretty proud of that. So that was pretty cool. And Jack, he also, rules, he would kind of follow rules, but most of the times not. I went back one time, and he was racing a Legends car, which is a little small, 1600cc motorcycle engine in the front. It's a little thing you do a little oval track racing with. And I go to see him race, and they're having practice sessions. So I'm in the paddock area with him, and he goes, "Chris, you want to go have a go in it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to, but when can I do it?" He said, "Go right now." I said, "Yeah, but this is one of your practice sessions. I'm not registered. I can't get out there." He goes, "Yeah, put my helmet on, my suit. Nobody will know." So I did it. And it was a blast. It was a blast. We didn't get caught or anything, thank God, but it was good. And one time I went back to do a race with him, and we were going to go to Savannah, Georgia for a spec racer race. And Hurricane Hugo had come through Savannah and through Charlotte. We were in Charlotte, and come through Charlotte too on Thursday night, I think. And so once we knew the Savannah race was not going to happen, Jack says, "Oh, look, there's a race in Memphis, Tennessee. Let's go to there." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So the truck was all loaded up. So that Hurricane came through Charlotte, I think, on a Thursday night, and we had already had the truck packed up. So we left Friday morning, going through trees, down trees, snaking through Charlotte to get on the road. Finally, we get on the road, and we're going over the Rocky Mountains, or not the Appalachian Mountains, and I'm kind of a little bit asleep, trying to get some sleep before we get to the track, and I kind of wake up and look in the rearview mirror, and I see the trailer is in a drift. Oh, no. And so Jack's going down this country road, just probably 70, 80 miles an hour with this trailer on the back, just drifting the trailer through these cars. Like, "Jack, we're not that big of a hurry, are we? Slow down a little bit." So he said, "Yeah, maybe you're right, I should slow down." So he did, thank God. But did a couple other races with him. One time we did a 4-hour race called the Iligen Classic at Sears Point Raceway, and I'd never been there before and driving, and he'd never been there driving before either. It was the first practice session. He goes out first, And then I go out in the second practice session, and during the middle of the session, I come in to, I haven't checked my car out and look at tires, and I come in, pull in, Jack sticks his head in the cockpit and says, "What the hell are you doing out there?" I said, "I'm trying to learn the track. What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, you're way off the pace. What are you doing in turn, what gear are you in turn 3? And I'm like, I think I'm down to second. He says, "Well, don't go to second. You're ever slow, and go to third. Stay in third." And he says, "Where are you breaking into turn 7? I'm like, probably the 3 marker. He said, "No, go to the 2 marker." He just went all the way around the whole track, telling me what to do. And so I go back out, I did everything he said. I come in, I'm like a half second off his time. And so that was good. So we start the race, and it's a 4-hour race. So he did the first hour, I did the second hour, he did the third hour, I did the 4th hour. So he did the first hour. And we had like a 5-minute stop in between so you could talk, and there was time to refuel the car so that everybody had an equal chance of doing a proper pit stop. But anyway, he did his stint, and then I got in, I did my stint, and I come in, and after my stint, I park, get out of the car, and he starts getting ready to get in. He goes, "Damn it, Chris, you beat my lap time. Now I got to go out there and beat yours." So the only reason I could beat his lap time is because he told me how to do it. So, but then he, his career got going good. He got into Trans Am racing and pro racing, and it was one of my proudest moments, I would say, is I was at that point was working for ACS Racing. I just started. It was our second race at Las Vegas in the year 2000, and we managed to win the race. And Jack finished third. He beat Willie Key Ribs to just beat him to the line to finish third in the race. And so it was just such a great feeling for me to be standing there with the podium in front of me, my driver on winning and Jack in third on that podium. I'll never forget that moment. And then Jack moved out to California. His racing career kind of, the Trans Am thing kind of fizzled out, and he kind of went back to doing spec racer stuff and did some driver coaching and stuff to kind of give back. I mean, he wanted to give back to this sport, so he did that. And he moved out to California and married Sheris, and he worked for us a little bit at ACS. He worked for me when he was getting on his feet out here as a mechanic, fabricator. And he drove our truck for us, the big rig for us, and helped us build a car we won the championship with in 2009, the World Challenge GT Championship. He was a big part of that whole thing, not only as a mechanic, but as a fabricator and a great guy on the team. And then the fact that he had his spec racers out here was great too, because then I got to see him more and we got to race more. So I was so glad when he moved out. But one thing about Jack is he had no filter when he talked. I'm sure a lot of you experienced some of the things he said, and I think now that maybe I think he wanted to see what kind of reaction he gets out of people when he says some of this stuff. But at one point was at our wedding. We were, it's like 11:30 at night after our wedding. We'd been partying all day, drinking and having a good time. And I'm sitting on the steps, these steps in this big house we rented for the wedding, and I'm sitting on the steps with Jack, and this family friend of ours, Rabbi Rockland, was sitting there with us, a couple of his daughters were sitting there, and he's got some really beautiful daughters. And the rabbi turns to Jack and says, "Jack, so what do you want out of life?" And Jack says, "One of your daughters." And the rabbi, he's a great guy. He just laughed and put his arm around Jack and said, "Yeah, that's funny." But I mean, Jack, he was always honest with what he said. You knew where you stood with him, and he had a lot of friends in the racing world, especially in the spec racer community. People back east that he raced with, 30 years ago, still think the most of him, and the respect he's got from the race community is just tremendous. Not only he would just help anybody if he's at the track and you needed a hand, you can go see him and he would do what he could to help you get your car on the track. And last thing I want to say is, when Jack was in the hospital, I think the second time battling cancer, I would go to the hospital and talk to him, and I'd try to remember fun times we had together and try to laugh with him and stuff. And we both admitted to each other that as far as our racing careers go, that we were really satisfied with what each of us had accomplished in life. So I'm really glad Jack felt that way about his driving, because he was one hell of a race car driver. So I love him, I'm gonna miss him, and thank you all for coming. Okay, we're going to show video now for montage. At the end of this video, there's a lap I did in honor of Jack at Buttonwillow Raceway. So you'll get to see that, and I throw some of his ashes out at one of the corners that he was one of the fastest guys. Nobody could really touch him, but this one corner called Phil Hill. So you'll see me throw some ashes out at the very end.